What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to take a look at the FansToys Sovereign, their version of a movie masterpiece Galvatron. Now, when I say movie, I do not mean the more recent Transformers movies. I do mean the original 1986 movie. So they've changed the color on this. This is basically a repaint of the same figure that was released way back when, but now they've got this darker metallic purple. So here's the front of the box, not much on the side. On the back, you've got a new product image here with Quietus, their version of Cyclonus. So that is a new image. It does say FansToys 2019, so obviously this box has been reworked a bit. The rest of it's pretty much the same. It's a very big box, actually. That's really it for the box. Here's the instruction manual. Very nice instruction manual color. Lots of pretty good images here, so we'll see how that turns out when we go to transform it. And you've got the collector's card here. Nice credit card style. I always like these. It's got the tech specs pretty much maxed out there. So that's really it for the packaging. Let's get the guy open and take a look at the figure. Here we have Galvatron in his alt mode. And it looks pretty good. There are definitely some, I would say, liberties taken, but overall it looks pretty close to the G1 cartoon. In fact, let's get an image up in the corner so we can take a look and see how this compares. But overall, I think they did a really good job trying to capture that G1 cartoon likeness, but also giving it a little bit of style. That's kind of how FansToys operates. They sort of give you the G1 style, but with a little bit of, class and an adult toy added. So here it is. Let's take a 360 all the way around. And you'll notice that in this mode, it's much more grays and blacks versus that dark, deep purple that we had in the robot mode. I did want to show you can use the blast effect in the cannon mode. It is heavy and it is kind of struggling to hold it up. You could take off some of it and that's going to make it a little bit lighter. This part's really, it's just solid plastic, so it makes the whole thing kind of heavy. So but you don't need all of it. You could take it apart if you don't want it, but there's the blast effect part and it does fit in there. It's kind of cool. So there's that. And just for the sake of completeness, there he is with the matrix chained onto his cannon, and that looks good. I have no complaints about that accessory. Here he is with the translucent cannon, and it looks okay. Obviously it's supposed to look more like the toy, but for me, I just prefer the regular cannon, the painted one. So looking all around, you do have some articulation in this mode, so you can bend the arms downwards, and then these down here, they do articulate, and it's pretty nice and solid, and that's something that I'll bring in the DX9 one in a minute here, but it was definitely not as solid as this one. There it is with the DX9 version, and you can see they're definitely very different in the alt mode. For one, the angle of the gun is different. This one's pointing upwards, this one's kind of straight, and you can see the details kind of all around are different. I do like all these red accents. On this one, there are some red accents, but it's just not as vibrant. And you see a little bit more purple on this guy. Now, you can get him upwards. You kind of have to unplug this and fold it that way, and then you can kind of get him pointing upwards. It's not quite right, but you can get him like that. So I don't know. It is what it is. Most people won't have it in this mode anyways, but it does work. Now the difference here is you do get the light up feature again, so you can have that going on. And I think that is something that's nicer, but everything else, like the stability of the arms, the angle, just the colors, just the feel of it, everything about the FansToys alt mode just feels and looks better. Now we're gonna get this guy transformed into robot mode. I'm not going to show the transformation. This figure is pretty old, and the transformation, there are plenty of videos out there showing the transformation. So just to cut the time down on the video, I'm going to transition to robot mode off camera, and then we'll be right back. And here we have FansToys Movie Galvatron. And it's going to be very hard to remain subjective or objective on this guy without trying to gush, because the paint is so attractive. It really just draws you in. But let's take a quick 360. This is basically just right out of the box. Here's the back. Pretty clean back, although this is all really kind of accurate to the G1 cartoon or the movie. I did question this. Now, this is one of those reviews where I'm going to have to eat my words from my prior review. So we're going to take a look at the DX9 version of Galvatron. But I, at that time, said that I think the DX9 is better. Now that I have this on hand, it's not what I thought. So anyway, we'll take a look at that later. I'll talk more about what I thought. But in terms of this figure, just to look, really the paint is outstanding. So hopefully I can get in close here and show you a little bit more how this pink, it's got that metallic fleck. It's a very deep purple. It's not blue. It's definitely purple, but it's a very deep, dark purple. You've got pretty much paint all over this guy. The shoes are also painted on the feet. You got this metallic gunmetal, and then you've got the white in here. And then the face, you've got that nice paint and metallic red eyes, and then some metallic red paint here. Got some translucent pieces here on the chest. More translucent pieces in the knee. You got painted red here on the hip skirts. Some accents here, silver accents. You can see the die cast here. There is a lot of die cast. This guy is really heavy. Let's take a look at some of the articulation. So the head is on a rotating swivel, so you can get all the way around, and you get down to there, up to there, which is pretty good. I do wish it went down a little bit more, but it's good enough for me. It feels really good and solid on that head. As far as the arms, you get rotation all the way around. You get out to there. This tends to fall off, so I'm going to just keep it off for a second, but I'll talk about that in a second. You get a rotation up here at the bicep. You also get a rotation on this, but that's really for transformation. But it does help you with posing, so let me show you something. So if you wanted to have the arm where the slot for the gun is on the top, you can do that, and you can just rotate this to the bottom so it stays on the bottom. So that's a really good design that they thought about that. They said, hey, we want to make sure this is out of the way, and so you can do that. You can rotate to the bottom, but you can have them up like that. Moving on to the rest of the ham, you do have a rotation at the wrist, and I did forget about this. Let me just talk about that. You have a double jointed elbow. It's all the way up to there. Plenty of movement there. Rotation at the wrist. Each finger is individually articulated. This is how I like my hands to be done. This nice, tight, a little bit thicker fingers. I never really liked the DX9 one. We'll take a look at that, but these are fine. I like these hands. These just look good. They're the right size. In terms of waist, you get a articulated rotation. I don't believe there's an ab crunch. I may be mistaken, but I don't see any ab crunch. You have hip skirts here. They're really nice and tight. And then you have hip skirt here in the front. So you get the leg all the way up to there. These legs are pretty heavy. Goes all the way back to there. All the way out to there on our friction joint. Nice ratchets in there. You do get a double jointed knee. So you get all the way up to there, which you don't even need. This does articulate independently, which is the way I would want it. So I'm glad they did that. You want to be careful with the paint, so just make sure you rotate that as you're closing up the knee. And you can have these sort of fanned out a little bit, or you can have them straight. You can kind of do what you want there. Rotation at the upper thigh, and it doesn't break the sculpt at all because it's kind of hidden underneath there, which is a nice way to do it. You have a toe pivot and an ankle pivot and a rocker this way and a toe tilt. So you've got tons of articulation on the foot there. It does come with 2 cannons, and you do have to transform it out of the box. So I'll just show you that on this one. You basically open this up, open up the back here, and then it folds out. It's very tight, just like everything FansToys. It's all tight. Fold this down, and they both clip back in. And there's the gun. And then you can peg it in. Now, the translucent one tends to peg in a little bit easier. I think the paint on here is what's preventing it from plugging in extremely securely. It's good enough. Like if I press that in there, it's not going anywhere. It's not falling off at all. I mean, this is just solid figure, but so that's not falling off. It's just as you're manipulating, articulating it, it does tend to get loose. You also get a really nice matrix. So here's the matrix. It comes on a chain. We'll get in close on this. And there's the matrix. It's got that blue jewel in there. Just as good as any other matrix we've gotten. It's obviously die cast. That's the only way FansToys would do something like this. But the nice thing is it does fit on his neck. Now I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to scratch the paint. But you can put that over his head and have that hanging from his neck, so that he's basically stolen this, or taken this from the Autobots. So here's an alternate face, and this is kind of the yelling face there. So we'll get this on and take a look at how that looks. So here's with the alternate face. It is kind of weird. I think they needed to paint the inside of the mouth black or gray, and that's kind of what looks off about it. But it's a nice sculpt. It's a nice face. I like the original better. Something about this is off, mostly probably because it's not painted. But so that's really it for the alternate face. And the final accessory is this blast effect. It's kind of heavy, so you can plug that into the gun, and it tends to weigh his arm down. So it's just too heavy to support. Now it's got a really nice ratchet joint, but it just can't support this. But you can remove some of it, and then it's no problem. You can hold the weight of that. So I'm not sure why they made it so big. In fact, you could probably even just go down to 1. Just use that. And then you got a little blast effect. So that's nice. It's just, it doesn't really work that well. They probably should have thought that through a little bit more in terms of the weight. And the last accessory you get is the stand. So unfortunately my background probably doesn't show this too well, but here's the stand. It's pretty tall. The great thing about this is this can be used with other FansToys figures. So I could use this for Phoenix, which is probably how I'm going to use it. But you have a little tab here, and that fits right into the bottom right here in Galvatron, and also onto the back here you got a little slot there. So if you line those two up, and it fits in very nicely, pretty securely, you can get him into some flying poses. And again, I am absolutely horrible at posing on camera. There you go. You can get him doing some crazy stuff. And that's great. I like that they include stuff like this. This is the kind of accessories that we should have more of when we buy Masterpiece figures. So for comparison, here he is with the FansToys Quietus, their version of Cyclonus. These two really do look good together. They are a different shade. This is more of a blue. I mean, it's a purplish blue, but this is a deeper purple blue. So that's how you can tell that, a lot of people are saying this is blue, but it really is a more purplish color. Now, Cyclonus is looking more blue than, I guess what people would expect in the movie. But I'm okay with this. I like the look of these two together. There he is with the Masterpiece Megatron MP36. They are about the same height, although Galvatron does appear to be a little bit taller. He's also a little bit wider and bulkier. I guess I can see him turning into him. All right, and finally we're going to do the comparison that everybody kind of wants to see. This is the DX9 version of Galvatron. They call him Tyrant with the FansToys. And, you know, when this came out and I reviewed it, I definitely thought that this was the better way to go. It was much cheaper. This, I think at release was around 180, maybe 170. This was around 130. The price dropped quite a bit after he came out, so you were able to get him for a little bit cheaper. But now I kind of see why the price dropped. So we're going to go over kind of all the different things, you know, the pluses and minuses, and why I think, I mean, at this point, I'm just going to tell you why I think FansToys is better in terms of the robot mode. So first of all, the cannons themselves. Now, FansToys went with this more cartoon accurate orange. You do have an alternate cannon for both. So they both come with this translucent cannon. This one happens to have a little bit of metallic fleck in it, but they're both just these translucent, you know, toy-like cannons. So they both have this. I can't really fault either of them for having that. But this DX9 does have an LED. So if you click this button here, I do have the batteries in here. You get that nice light up LED, and that's pretty cool. That's a cool feature, and you can transfer this to the other gun if you want to. So you can have that gun in the translucent one, or you can have it in here. So that's a nice feature that is not included in the FansToys. The other thing that I like the head sculpt on the DX9. It's really nice, but it's not painted well. It's mostly plastic. There's a little bit of paint. So let's get in closer on these heads, and you can kind of see the differences there. Now the DX9 face sculpt is a little more sculpted. It's got a little more definition, but the FansToys still looks good. It's a little bit less defined, but the other thing I've noticed is the head on the DX9 is quite a bit bigger, and the proportions are a little bit off when it comes to the DX9. So I think that's something that FansToys has been pretty good at, is the proportions. They've been really good, and this is one area where this head sculpt is amazing, by the way, don't get me wrong. It's just the face is a little bit less defined. It doesn't bother me. In fact, looking at it up close, it looks really good. But that's one thing I think DX9 pretty good with that head sculpt. Another issue, and this is just, I don't know, DX9 didn't do a good job, is these hands. They're super spindly. They're really irritating, especially when you're trying to transform it. You got to get these all folded up because it's going to fold inside his arm, and if you don't have it right, it won't fold in there. And they're just kind of fiddly, and they don't. And I've been looking for replacement hands. They have never made replacement hands. I even looked at KFC to see if they made purple replacement hands that would fit, and they didn't. So you're kind of stuck with those, and that's really all you get. But unfortunately, that's where FansToys definitely has them beat there, is the hands. Another place where I think the DX9 kind of failed was these hip skirts and these knees. So these hip skirts don't fold up. You can fold them back like this, and you can also fold them in and out, but you can't really get them up and out. And that's what they should do, right? You know, the hip skirts are really modeled after Samurai, right? That's kind of where Transformers, actually a lot of the look of Transformers comes from Samurai, but these things are supposed to fold out of the way, right? Generally speaking, these are armor on Samurai, and they should be folding up and out. And I don't know, this one is just, the movement on it is so strange. So that's another thing. And then this knee piece, so this is supposed to be his knee guard, or shin, whatever, thigh guard. But this one, all it does is that it bends back and forth. If you look at the FansToys one, you've got all of this articulation, and you can get it in any position, and it's actually part of the posing. So that is a point of articulation On the DX9, it's just kind of a dressing, right? It looks nice. It kind of adds to the look, but it's not really, you don't get anything out of it. Another thing where DX9's got things wrong is the arms. I mean, they do articulate. You got a friction joint there, and you got a hard ratchet going this way. But this, what is this? Why did they design it that way? You can kind of push these in, and that helps a little bit, but still, there's some play in there. That's part of the transformation, but there's some play in there. Look at the FansToys one, nice and tight, and when you rotate this, it does move a little, but not like that. And so I don't understand why they did that. Here you go. So obviously paint is no contest. I mean, there is no paint on the DX9. The only paint on here is this silverish paint on the legs and on this midsection. The rest is just plastic, purple plastic. Now the colors look good. The color scheme is great, but there isn't any paint on here. I think this red might be painted. If you look at the FansToys, almost the entire thing is painted. All of these thighs, these knee guards, all of the body, all of the arms. Looks like this gun is painted. I'm not sure if it's just a flecked plastic, but I think it is actually painted on the back, on the arms, everywhere. I forgot to cover this. There is a way to tab the arm in, so if you want to kind of have it just set inwards, you can do that. But let's get the gun back on. That is one thing that DX9 has done better, is this gun. It pegs in very securely. It's got a nice long tab. This tab is really quite short, as you can see, and that's part of the reason why it falls out, because as you're manipulating, it doesn't have, yes, you can see, as you're manipulating, it just kind of comes off. But once you put it in there, once you set his arm in the position you want, it does stay. It's just a matter of it falls out when you're playing with it. All right, let's move on to legs. So on the legs, now this is completely subjective in terms of the look of the legs. I definitely like the look of the FansToys legs, especially because of the knee guards. But the articulation is where things are not subjective, and there's an objective issue. So here, these are ratcheted, so if you want to move them out, that's the detent. It's that far out. So when you have both legs, one detent out, that's the A stands. This one is frictioned, so you don't have to have them that far. You can have a natural stance. And I don't know why they did that, why they made the detent so far, but that definitely causes difficulty in posing, because you only have one choice for the width of that first detent. So that's kind of an issue. Another issue with the DX9 is the feet. So you look at these, and the looks is subjective. Honestly, these aren't the best looking feet. Here's the FansToys feet. They're obviously better looking. But I was willing to overlook that, because, it's okay. But the bigger issue is that they're not stable. And the reason is the joint they use there is just, it's not, I guess it is ratcheted, but not really. It's got like one ratchet, so it's kind of loose. And he tends to flop around. Once you set him in place, he's okay. But as you're playing with him, he tends to flop around, and that's really kind of annoying. So those are kind of the main differences I see. Now, one other thing, this is a difference, and again, this is totally a preference. So do you want the wheels or the treads on the back? That's what DX9 has. Or do you want them on the arms? I believe the arms are cartoon accurate. So FansToys has it cartoon accurate. Is that what you want? I don't know. Right? It does kind of change the look of the character. You got nice clean arms here, but If you want cartoon accuracy, DX9's got you covered. FansToys got you covered. If you want a clean arm, then DX9's got you covered. So let's just talk about accessories really quick. So they both come with the translucent gun, so we can skip over that. They both come with the matrix, but the DX9 matrix is really big. I think they did that so you could have this opening closing effect. Honestly, I don't think they needed that. I'm not using that. So I would have been better off just a normal size matrix, just like all the other masterpieces we've gotten. A nice die cast. This one's plastic and it actually doesn't stay closed, but that's just the way it's designed. So I think we could have done without this gigantic matrix. Also, the FansToys comes with the blast effect. Again, it's a little too heavy, but you can take it apart and utilize it that way. And it comes with the flight stand. So in terms of accessories, I think FansToys has got the edge. One, you get more accessories, and two, you get more useful accessories. Oh, I also forgot about the alternate face. You don't get the alternate face with the DX9. So I give accessories to FansToys. So final thoughts was, I think this is an excellent release from FansToys. Obviously not a new release, but even just the paint job, I think it's worth getting this figure. Now, is it better than DX9? I guess that's up to you in your opinion. My personal opinion, there's not even a competition here. I mean, this is just a superior figure. Now, you are paying a lot more. This is $180 retail versus I think the DX9 was $130. But the amount of things you're getting, you know, the number of accessories, the paint, the quality, the die cast, the heft, the feel, just everything about this, it's worth the price. It's worth the price of admission. So I highly recommend this one. If you didn't get a hold of the movie version, the FT-16M, you can always go for the regular version. A lot of people are selling those now because they bought this one. So they sell the original. Even the original is good. It doesn't have the metallic paint job, but it still has a very good paint job. It's just a slightly different color. So I definitely recommend it. I think this is the Galvatron to have if you've got a masterpiece collection. So that's really it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.